When Governor Kristi Noem questioned Jasmine Crockett's bloodline on live camera, she thought it would go unnoticed, but 11 seconds later, Crockett delivered a response so powerful it made the nation rethink what really defines American values. They didn't expect her to stay silent, not after what Kristi Noem had just said. In front of a full room, not with cameras rolling, and definitely not with the smugness that caught every syllable of her little dig. It happened inside the Education and Labor Committee hearing in Washington in room 2175 of the Rayburn House office. Building the air with stiff tension, had been climbing since the morning session testimony. After testimony, both sides were throwing shade wrapped in formal language. But when it was Governor Noem's turn to speak, she broke from the usual script. She leaned forward, looking directly at Representative Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas, and said with that slow, deliberate cadence she uses when she wants to provoke some of us, come from generations who actually understand what it means to work the land, build our homes with our own hands, raise families with values, not slogans. That's why we're here, fighting for real education. Reform it. Performative politics. Then, after a pause, the corners of her lips curled into a half-smiley F. Of course, not all of us come from the kind of bloodline that teaches that. The room didn't gasp it, when still, the kind of still that comes when people are calculating whether they heard what they think. They just hearted staffer behind Noem stiffened. Crockett didn't say anything, not right away. She sat up straighter, hands folded on the desk, just looking at Noem. C-SPAN's cameras stayed locked on her Ficino notes. No mic tapping, no eye rolling. 11 seconds of silence, and that silence, it screamed. Journalist in the back started typing faster. One aide from California quietly took out her phone and began filming, pretending to check messages. A congressman seats down from Crockett shifted uncomfortably in his chair, whispering to a colleague, "Did she really say bloodline?" That word hit like a slop-a line that didn't have to be said but was a dog whistle in plain sight. You could see it in the eyes of those watching. The older black woman seated in the second row, clutching her notebook to Turth, Latino assistant from San Diego, who mouthed "wow" to himself. Even some Republicans squirmed, but Crockett didn't give her the satisfaction of a fast reply. She didn't flinch, didn't scold a dant, meet fire with fire. She waited, and in that pause, something shifted. Could feel the power recalibrating, sliding away from Noem slowly and landing quietly on Crockett's shoulders. When Jasmine finally did lean forward, the voice was quiet, steady, almost to calm. "Madam Governor, I want to thank you for reminding this room how easy it is to throw words when you've never had to carry the weight, bend them." She didn't raise her tone, she didn't blink fast or fumble, just kept going. "Since we're talking about family, me offer you a quick lesson on mine. My mother taught public school in Dallas County for over 30 years. My grandfather wore an Army uniform and raised 4 kids on a mechanic's salary. They didn't have acres of land, but they had integrity, and they didn't need to tell people they had values. They showed them every single day." Her words cut cleaner than any insult, and she wasn't done yet. "So if this conversation is about education, let's actually talk about it. Not coded language, not pedigreeing it, some fairy tale idea of what makes someone American enough to speak on education best. I'm pretty sure parents in Rapid City want the same thing as parents in Garland's safe schooltionist curriculum. And kids who graduate prepared, not programmed." Room stayed quiet. No interruptions, not even from those who usually loved to talk over her. It was only the beginning, but in that moment everyone in the chamber knew something had flipped. The comment Noem had tossed out like a grenade had just blown up in her own hands. But that was only the first crack in the dam. What came next would leave the whole country talking. It wasn't just what Jasmine said, was how she said it, the way her voice didn't even tremble, the way she didn't rush or stumbled it and throw in big words to sound impressive. She just told the truth straight and unshaken, and for some in that room, it was the first time they'd seen her do it like that, not in a soundbite, not in a tweet, but live right in front of them. Governor Noem's face twitched barely but enough to catch the attention of Representative Charles Brenner from Idaho, who glanced from Crockett back to Hearth and jotted something quickly on his legal pad. Even the usual murmurs, the ones that follow every hot exchange in a hearing, didn't come. It was too quiet. To Jasmine's left, Congressman Reuben Fisk leaned over slightly and whispered, "You good," without looking at her. She nodded. "Better than she," said. Under her breath, eyes still forward from across the room. Noem Zadia, tall man in a navy suit with a red striped tie, leaned in and whispered something sharp into her ear. She gave a tight nod and tried to recover the floor, clearing her throat like she was about to double. A sharp-tongued independent from Oregon beat her to the mic. "Let's pause right there," he said firmly. "Governor Noem, we'll return to your remarks later, but for now, I believe." Representative Crockett has made her point, and she made it with more composure than I think most of us could have managed. His tone didn't allow for protest, and just like that, the floor shifted again it, just in tone but in balance. What had started as a set-up momenta public call-out aimed to corner Jasmine into flailing was now turning into something else. Entire Lipopel weren't watching to see if she could defend herself anymore. They were listening now. Closely Representative Gina Morales from Nevada leaned forward in her seat, one hand to her cheek. Clearly impressed, she sent a text to her assistant, "Get the clip timestamp 1:1754," and behind Jasmine enunciated. In the gallery, a group of public school advocates from Pennsylvania exchanged wide-eyed looks, and of them whispered, "Did she just reverse the entire power dynamic in under a minute, bet?" The most striking reaction wasn't what anyone said it was. The sudden shift in body language. Noem had gone stiff, jaw tight, eyes fixed on her notes for the first time all morning, wasn't steering the room, she was in it, and it showed at that point. Jasmine turned slightly in her seat and whispered to her legislative director, a young woman named Ayanna Briggs, "Please send that transcript to Mycom's team." Every word. Ayanna smiled. "Already did its clean." Jasmine exhaled through her nose. "Let them come for me. I hope they doughbox. Here's the truth. Jasmine Crockett didn't come to Congress to play nice. She didn't care about sounding polished or rehearsage. Came to do her job, and right now her job was telling the truth, even when it made people uncomfortably spleeshly. Then, a few minutes later, when the hearing resumed, the room had changed. The smug energy gone, the dismissiveness muted, and while the agenda moved forward, testimony from a state superintendent, queance about funding formulas, everyone knew they weren't really listening to the answers. They were still stuck on what had just happened. Even Representative Ellis Darnell, a man known for asking drawn-out of-topic questions, kept it short. All eyes were still on Jasmine.